Let's lock in. This topic is all about one big question. How do we make physical activity safer? So OCR says you need to understand how risk of injury can be minimized using PPE or personal protective equipment, using correct clothing and footwear, an appropriate level of competition, safe lifting and carrying of equipment, and the use of warm up and cool down. OCR also expects you to know potential hazards in 5 settings. So we're going to look at these 5 settings towards the end of this video. We're going to look at sports halls, fitness centers, playing field, artificial outdoor areas, and swimming pool. So the simplest way to think about this topic is injuries usually happen when the body, the environment, or the equipment are not properly controlled. So preventing injury means controlling all of these three things. So before we begin, this is the wording that OCR wants you to be precise with. OCR's 2024 Examiner report states that a warm-up does not completely prevent injury, It can only reduce the risk of injury. And that same report also explains that a cool down is mainly about speeding up recovery and reducing soreness and stiffness. So a cool down is not magically preventing injury in the activity that has already finished. Now let's dive straight in with personal protective equipment or PPE. PPE is the equipment worn to protect vulnerable body parts from impact, strain, or further damage. OCR mark schemes give examples such as shin pads, gum shields, helmets, and knee support or ankle support. Think of PPE as an extra line of defense. In football, shin pads help to protect your lower leg during tackles. In hockey, a gum shield would help protect the mouth and the teeth. In cycling, a helmet protects the head in the case that a rider falls down. And in some cases, supports or braces can help to stabilize a weak joint. Next, we have correct clothing. OCR also expects you to know correct clothing and footwear. The mark schemes uses examples such as studs on football boots, supportive shoes with grip, and clothing that allows for safe movement. And the reason that this is important is simple. Footwear affects your grip, stability, and control. Clothing affects movement, comfort, and safety. If a footballer wears boots with suitable studs, they are less likely to slip and fall on grass. Another example, if a gymnast or a yoga performer wears clothing that stretches and allows full movement, then their technique is safer and less restricted. So the exam trick here is to connect the clothing or the footwear to the surface or the activity. So don't just talk about the clothing or the footwear in itself. You want to link it to that activity. Next, let's talk about appropriate level of competition, because not every challenge is safe for every performer. The key idea here is mismatch is dangerous. If a performer is put into activity that is too advanced for them, too intense, too physical for their age, their size, their experience, or their ability, then the risk of injury rises. OCR mark schemes give examples such as walking football, walking netball, senior exercise classes, or teams of a similar standard as alternatives that people can do instead of being chucked into activities that are too advanced for them. So this is simply about sensible matching. An example with boxing, a beginner boxer shouldn't be thrown in with a much more advanced, powerful opponent, because it's like putting one of us in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Obviously it's going to lead to a bad outcome. Someone can really get badly hurt, and it's not going to be Anthony Joshua. So a younger or an older performer may need a more modified version of the game. A novice in the gym, for example, shouldn't start with maximal lifts. The right level ultimately makes performance safer and more controlled. So that's the whole idea of this one. Now let's move on to lifting and carrying equipment safely. This is all about avoiding injuries before the activity even starts. So OCR includes lifting and carrying equipment safely. And even in OCR mark schemes gives examples such as two people carrying posts or carrying board trolleys. And it mentions that appropriate training when setting up equipment, giving gym inductions, carrying out safety checks and things like that should be done before activity begins. This is one that students might sometimes underestimate because they don't think it's very important in the exam, but this point is very exam worthy because it very much links to injury and the fact that injury can happen before the game even starts. Now let's move on to warm up and cool down. So this is about safer participation across the whole session. And with this one, you need to make sure that your wording is precise. A warm up prepares the body by increasing heart rate, body temperature, blood blood flow through the body and the readiness of the muscles and joints, which ultimately helps to reduce injury risk and improve the quality of movement. OCR mark schemes and OCR guidance links warm-ups to increase blood flow, oxygen transport, improve the elasticity of muscles, tendons, and ligaments. A cool down happens after the activity and it supports recovery by maintaining circulation, gradually lowering heart rate and breathing rate, and helping to reduce stiffness and soreness. OCR's examiner report specifically says its role is to speed up recovery. So we're not claiming here that it's reducing or preventing the risk of injury of the activity that has already been completed. So that's a key distinction, that's a key point to keep in mind. Now let's look at hazards by setting. We're going to look at a few settings. We're going to look at swimming pool, sports hall, fitness center, playing field, and outdoor artificial areas. So starting with sports hall. In a sports hall, common hazards include wet or slippery floors, equipment being left out, insufficient space, and collisions with other performers or with other equipment. OCR mark schemes and sports hall risk assessments both point to slippery surfaces, trip hazards, and unsafe equipment as common risks. So think about a basketball lesson, right, where a water bottle may have leaked near the sideline or benches are left too close to the court. That will obviously create an obvious risk of someone slipping or someone colliding. Next, let's talk about fitness centers. In a fitness center, hazards include dropped weight, faulty or damaged machines, poor technique, cluttered walkways, and misuse of equipment. OCR mark schemes refer to gym inductions and safe use of weights and machines, while wider safety guidance highlights the importance of manual handling and slip or trip risks. So if someone leaves a dumbbell on the floor or uses a machine incorrectly or tries a lift that is beyond their ability without having support, without having a spotter, then their risk of injury increases. That's why inductions, supervisions, tidy floors, and correct techniques matter very much. So I've looked at fitness center, I've looked at sports hall. When you're talking about this, always mention how it can be improved, how these hazards can be addressed. So for the sports hall, you want to mention that you want to check the floor is dry, you want to remove the spare equipment and make sure enough space is available. For the fitness center, like we've just mentioned, you want to ensure that there are inductions, supervisions, tidy floors, and correct technique is being used. Now let's talk about the playing field. OCR expects hazards on a playing field, so their mark schemes give examples such as slippery or wet surfaces, littering, stones or glass, uneven ground, holes, and hard surfaces. So this is actually very easy to visualize. Take a footballer. A footballer running at speed into a hidden hole in the pitch could actually twist their ankle and injure them very badly. Mud or water can also increase the risk of slipping and injuring yourself. Litter, broken objects can cause one to get cut or to fall. That's why it's important to check the pitch before it's being used, and that is a standard safety procedure. Next, outdoor artificial areas. So artificial outdoor areas, the same principles really apply. Performers need to use the right footwear, the surface must be safe, and slips, trips, or any awkward landings must be minimized. OCR includes artificial outdoor areas as a required setting, and general slip risk guidance shows how surface condition and contaminated or wet flooring increases the chance of slipping. So a sensible application would be worn or wet artificial surfaces or incorrect studs or trainers for that surface can increase the risk of slipping or losing footing when moving quickly or turning quickly. Lastly, let's look at the hazards when it comes to a swimming pool. Relevant hazards can include wet surfaces, poolside or access hazards, just objects in the way, unclear water, edges around the pool, ladders or grills, and changes in depth of the pool, and also the need for proper supervision. Guidance for swimming pools highlights pool user safety, pool supervision. That's why lifeguards are important to be in place, and slip or fall hazards from wet surfaces. So picture a swimmer running on a wet poolside. Even before they enter the water, there is a slip risk. Once they're in the pool, poor supervision or unclear depth of the water or unsafe access points are also hazards, and so they also matter. So a strong answer on this would mention no running, proper supervision, and keeping wet areas managed safely. Okay, finally, how to build a strong exam answer. There is a very simple formula, a simple structure, a simple pattern to build a strong answer when you're answering questions on this topic. So you want to name the safety measure, give a practical example, and explain how it reduces risk. If you do that, you will get the mark. Okay, that's it for this video. If you want to do more exam practice and you want to learn from other topics, revise for exams, or just really master the topics that you are weak at, make sure you check out our platform www.superpeonline.com, the best PE platform in the world. And I will see you in the next video.